I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called and notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code Section 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney. 551.072, discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. 551.074, to discuss personnel or hear complaints against personnel. And the time is 5:32. Thanks. You're a lifesaver. The board will now reconvene into open session, and the time is 6:45. On behalf of the trustees, I would like to welcome all of you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast Independent School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during matters from the floor section of the agenda. If you signed up to address a specific action agenda item, you will be called at that time. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of the Northeast Independent School District to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Mrs. Huey, next item.
5, invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Ms. King?
If you'll pray with me, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance and wisdom and support as we begin this meeting. Be with each of our board members as they engage in meaningful discussion. Fill each one with your grace as they make decisions that might affect the students, staff, faculty, and friends of Northeast ISD. We thank you for this country and the freedom given to us by you. Freedom that is protected by our servicemen and women in the military. I pray that you protect each and every one of them and continue to give their family and friends the comfort and strength they need until they safely return home. Help us to stop and think of these brave people and not forget the privileges and opportunities that we have because of them. I pray for guidance for our president, who faces many difficult decisions every day. I pray that he is surrounded with wise men and women of moral integrity who place the good of this great nation above all else. We ask all these things in your gracious name. Amen. If you'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
Ms. King, thank you very much for those lovely words.
Yeah, Marie, thank you.
I can tell they were very heartfelt, and we appreciate everything that you do for each and every one of us, and you do a lot. So thank you. Ms. Huey, next item.
6, recognitions. A, National Council of Teachers English Award winner.
And this is Mrs. Hawkins.
Thank you, President Brejneham, board members, and Dr. Gotardi. Ms. Chigi, please come to the podium to make this presentation.
Tonight, we'd like to recognize Alex Nikas. He is a National Council of Teachers of English Award winner. Alex is a member of the 2015 graduating class at Churchill High School and is joined tonight by his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Eris Nikas, if you could please stand, along with his teacher, Wendy Charlton, and his principal, Mr. Oxley, who was coincidentally his principal at Radley Middle School. And I don't have Alex standing yet because I'm going to bring him to the podium
Yes.
in just a minute. So if you please be seated. He is a proud product of Northeast Schools, where he attended Coker Elementary School and Bradley Middle School. He's a member of the varsity swim and dive team and uses his free time to work with special needs children. He was placed in the GT curriculum as a kindergartner, and he began writing in his 6th grade GT class as part of his creative writing project. Unbeknownst to him then, the writing assignments would gradually become more lengthy and difficult as the years passed. In the future, he hopes to attend Dartmouth College and serve as the United States Army as a physician. The National Council of Teachers of English annually recognizes outstanding student writers. A committee of college professors and AP teachers evaluate the students' essays based on purpose, organization, tone, and style. Of the 796 juniors nominated to participate in this contest, 164 in the nation were selected as superior writers. Churchill is proud to announce that Alex Nikas is one of 8 students in Texas to receive this prestigious award. We are particularly proud of Alex, as this year in Northeast we have really put a focus on improving students' writing scores. To add to Alex's accomplishments, he recently scored a 5 on it, which is the highest you can score on an AP test. He scored a 5 on his language and composition test, AP test, and a 5 on his U.S. history test, and a 4 on his chemistry test.
Holy smokes.
And in addition, he scored a perfect score on the reading portion of the SAT test.
Wow.
So we've got a rock star academician amongst us. And he submitted 2 essays, both long and both outstanding. But at this time, I'd like Alex to come to the podium. He's just going to read one short paragraph just to show you his great talent and his great selection of words and voice. So, Alex, if you'd come.
Thank you, Mrs. Chidgey.
Before I begin, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Charlton and all the stellar English teachers NEISD has provided with me throughout the years. How easy it must be to be one without a home, no ties to a family or friends or work, thought Johann. So Johann made up his mind to leave behind his job and his family and his possessions. With his resolve tempered by the flames of his soul, Johann announced to his father the last words that would ever be shared between them. Father, I have decided to leave the life you wanted for me as a lawyer and join the possessionless. Amidst his father's profanity and protests, he calmly walked out of the room, threw his money to the beggar, and stepped back over the dirty stream of sewer water into a new state of existence. The neon lights of New York gave focus to Johann's journey, forming a glowing path to enlightenment. Thank you.
Alex, and we have something to give you. So Mrs. Wolf is going to present you with a lovely Northeast certificate. And if you wouldn't mind, do we have pictures? Or? Wonderful. We'd like to take a picture. And if your family would like to join you and your teacher and Mr. Oxley, that would really be nice. Thank you for coming, and if you're free to stay, you're free to go, whatever's best for you. Alex, you probably want to go. Yeah. Next item, Mrs. Hughes?
B, other.
Dr. Gotardi, do we have any introductions? I see some Boy Scouts in the audience.
We do have, Madam President, board members, ladies and gentlemen, we have several Boy Scouts in the audience. It's my privilege this evening to recognize from Troop 63, we have Mr. Jeff Hoffman, Juan Gonzalez, and Connie Martinez representing Troop 63. With us this evening, we have Alex, would you please stand when we call your names? Alex Rios from Garner, Christopher Hoffman from MacArthur, Daniel Ruiz from MacArthur, Joaquin Gonzalez from Garner, Luis Naveto from Kruger, Michael Cesate from Nimitz STEM, Nathan Herman from MacArthur, and Richard Martinez from MacArthur. And they're all here this evening, ladies and gentlemen, to get their citizenship in the community badge. So welcome to Northeast School District and welcome to our board meeting this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gotardi, and
Thank
we're
you.
really glad that you're here, and we're glad that you're students at our school district. So thank you. Next item.
7, matters from executive session. A, personnel, including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel, including but not limited to administrative appointments.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve personnel as presented.
Second?
A second.
Thank you. There can be no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Next item.
2, introductions.
Dr. Gotardi.
Thank you, Madam President. Board members, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege this evening to present to you Mrs. Linda Fleetwood, who is our new Visual Arts Director for the Fine Arts Department. Linda, would you please stand? We are so very thrilled to have Linda on board here at Northeast. She's joining the Northeast family as the Program Director of Visual Arts in the Fine Arts Department. Prior to this appointment here at Northeast School District, she was a Fine Arts Chair at Marshall High School at Northside Independent School District. She received her Bachelor of Arts degree in Art from Columbia College in 1980. Additionally, she earned her Master of Education degree in Educational Administration from Concordia University in 2009. Ms. Fleetwood has a total of 23 years in both public and private education, and we're very glad to have you on board here at Northeast Independent School District. Congratulations, Linda. Thank you. Linda, if you don't mind, who do you have in attendance with you this evening? Is that some family members?
This is my husband, Jim Fleetwood, who is also a teacher at Burbank High School.
Super.
And
Yeah.
this is my mother, Dorothy Wills, who is a former superintendent's wife. So they're here.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate y'all being in attendance as well, and Linda, we look forward to working with you every day. Thank you.
And we take such great pride in our fine arts program. It's stellar, and I know you will make it even more stellar. You came over to the right side. I couldn't help it, sorry. Next item.
B, possible action on the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property pursuant to Government Code Section 551.072.
We have no action.
C, possible action regarding consultation with board's attorney pursuant to Government Code Section 551.071. 1, possible and pending litigation.
And we have no action there as well.
8, presentations. A, Texas Education Code Section 11.164, restricting written information.
Mrs. Hawkins?
Thank you, President Galindo, board members, and Dr. Gotardi. Michael Lohr, our Executive Director for Research and Information Technologies, will drive the computer, and Dorian Galindo, our Research Analysis, will give the presentation.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. I'm here to present the results of an evaluation conducted by the Research Department for the 2013-2014 school year in regards to the Texas Education Code 11.164 Every year, the school districts in Texas conduct an annual review of district and campus compliance with regards to Restricting Written Information Act. So to summarize what the Restricting Written Information Act is, legislation passed in 2003 that limits the volume of paperwork that districts require classroom teachers to complete. The Board of Trustees of each school district shall limit the redundant requests of information and written reports that a classroom teacher is required to prepare. So under subsection A, there's a list of 10 different criteria of reports that teachers are required to report, and a couple of them I can bring up is reports concerning the health and safety or well-being of a student, report regarding student grades, or reports on academic progress. Subsection B and A, Board of Trustees review paperwork requirements that are imposed on classroom teachers and shall transfer to existing non-instructional staff as many of those duties as possible. Subsection C arrives at an agreement with teachers to collect essential information not specified under subsection A. So for the district assessment plan for this year, there were 3 steps involved. We presented the Texas Education Code to principals this year, April 10th, at a principals meeting, and we requested that they complete a survey by May 2nd. Step 2, the Department of Research and Information Technologies analyzed and organized responses to determine if any campus was in violation or if any areas of improvement were required. And then step 3 is presenting those results to you tonight. All principals were required to participate in the survey, and I'm happy to announce that we had 100% response rate. So we had 70 total responses collected during the survey results. We had 5 different survey questions. The first one was in regards to whether or not the principal felt that their campus was in compliance with Restricting Written Information Act. The second one, if not, what kinds of reports were campus staff being asked to complete that does not meet compliance? Question 3, what steps have been taken to reduce paperwork for professional or instructional staff? What tasks have been given to those non-instructional staff to reduce paperwork generation on the campus? And question 5, what suggestions do principals have in order to reduce paperwork that's not required by law? Principals were asked to work with their campus improvement committee and staff so that they can complete the survey questions. So on to the results. Pretty short and sweet. Question 1 and 2 results. So is their campus in compliance? And if not, what reports are being asked to complete that does not meet compliance? We had 96% principals report that their campus is in compliance with the Written Information Act. 4%, which was 3 of the 72 responses, stated that their campus was not in compliance. However, each case that they had reported that they felt they were not in compliance were actually due to state and federal mandated laws. So we are actually 100% in compliance. This is probably attributed to a couple principals that are brand new and don't know that there are state and federal requirements by law for documenting and reporting. Question 3 results, steps taken to reduce paperwork for professional instructional staff on campuses. The highest percent we had reported was 65% actually used technology to do any type of electronic documentation, Google Docs, email communication, so that they could reduce the redundant amount of documentation or generation of reports on campus. 25% of our principals stated as a reason that they're cognizant, they're becoming aware that the regulations set by Texas Education Code to eliminate the duplication of documentation that they even ask their teachers to complete on their campus. 10% of that also assign non-instructional duties to their clerical staff so that they can reduce the amount of documentation required by teachers. Question 4, tasks assigned to non-instructional staff. So these are the different types of categories that principals reported. 57% assigned clerical tasks and non-instructional duties to assist teachers, such as collecting information or scheduling meetings, creating checklists. We had a whole different types of categories, but a lot of them were categorized as clerical. 19% use technology, again, such as email, Google Docs, and district applications. We have online applications for documentation and organization of reports. And then 24% stated not applicable or none. Last question, 5. We asked whether principals had any suggestions to improve paperwork that's not required by law. And I'll just state the top 3 of the highest that were reported. 38% used technology, 33% had no suggestions or had anything to provide, and then 13% actually used paraprofessional staff on their campus so that they reduce the amount of burden on teachers. So overall conclusions, Northeast is in compliance with Texas education restricting written information. The use of technology has reduced the redundancy of documentation, increased communication, and also decreased generation of unnecessary paperwork and reports. And principals continue to establish new ways by working with their campus improvement committee and their staff so that they can increase efficiency and comply with paperwork reduction statutes. And so this is something that we're going to be doing every year, and typically it's usually at the end of the year we make sure that we have principals aware that this is required by law. Any questions?
Does anyone have questions for Ms. Galindo or Mr. Lara? I just have one. Could you go back to the pie chart? So when you say paperwork, does that include electronic documentation like you referred to in the prior slide?
Right, it's like the level of documentation that's required.
So use of technology as a mechanism by which to reduce it, could you give me an example?
Right, so a lot of the suggestions or the input provided by principals were reducing redundancy. So when they
I
have
see.
effective communication, they're able to
It's not
communicate with their
necessary to-
staff.
got
And so
it.
everyone's kind of on the same page, what they document. Like Compass is a big application that we use online for documentation. So that's where principals ask teachers to document and not have paperwork or paper trails or things like that. There's one source of documentation instead of teachers documenting all over the place.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Yes.
Mr. Wheat?
Yes. I noticed there were 4% that were off. And I'm sorry, if my microphone is not on. 4% that were off. I don't want to say which schools, but what steps are we taking to make sure that the 4% that are not on target are getting on target?
Great question. I think it's an education issue, letting principals know what's required by law, what's state and federally mandated, and what types of documentation are required, and basically let them know that the 4% that stated that they didn't feel they were in compliance, but the reasons that they provided were because of federal and state mandated documentation. So there's a difference between not being in compliance because of required documentation by law or redundant documentation that's given by the district.
Okay, so it's 3 campuses.
Right.
And what steps are being taken to make sure the 3 campuses are in compliance?
Thank you. We have June leadership, and we also have August leadership. It's a principal academy and a new assistant principal academy, so we will provide workshops to let them know that, because we are providing 2 workshops regarding Compass, which is our our district student management system, letting them know that there are avenues of documenting in that retrospect, yeah.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I keep meaning to, I'm sorry to ask more questions,
Okay.
but what means they're not in compliance? I mean, tell me why they're not in compliance.
Do you want an example?
An example would be fine.
A lot of the reasons that they stated that they felt that they weren't in compliance were of 504 or special ed documentation or ELL documentation were what they cited the most. So that's required by state and federal law.
So if I might
Mr.
add,
Go ahead.
it was their perception
It's
that they were not in compliance, and the reality was that they are in compliance by asking teachers to fulfill certain documentation. And that's part of the education process, and that's why the August leadership, we have a number of breakout sessions that we will retrain all of our principals.
So your feeling is that even though we have 4% that are not in compliance,
That feel they're not.
that feel they're not,
Yes, sir?
that you believe they are?
Yes, they are. Because the examples that they cited, we can see that those are allowed by law.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Mr. Wheat, did that satisfy your?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Ms. Galindo, Mr. Lotta, thank you very much. Next item.
9, board business. A, possible action regarding candidate endorsement for the 2014 TASB Board of Directors.
And this has to do with us as a board, whether or not we would like to endorse Mrs. Seaborn from Fort, Deborah Seaborn, and I'll have you speak to this in just a bit. She is asking to be, for our consideration to endorse her, to be reelected as a board of director for TASB. And Sandy, I know you know her, and maybe you'd like to weigh in on this recommendation.
All right, well, Deborah's a new TASB director. She was just elected last convention, and so from that standpoint, she's only been at 2 board meetings, and I can just tell you, she was filling an open position, which is why she's up for reelection for a full 3-year term. She is an outstanding lady. I've known her for quite a while. She's been very active in our coalition, and it brings her being a board member on the military post brings a different perspective to the TASB issues, our similarities and our differences both. So just a really, really good lady, and I would highly recommend endorsing her.
Mrs. Hewitt, to my knowledge, we've never done this before.
Right. In the past, there was a sense that when there were multiple candidates, that it might put the sitting TASB director in an uncomfortable position if we endorsed someone and they were not elected. In this case, Ms. Sebron is the only one up for that position. This would just be mainly just reconfirming that we do consider her a good board member.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I'd just like to add, Madam Chair, that
Yes.
in Region 20, we have 4 positions, and North Side, Northeast are 2 of the ones that have our own. We don't have to be elected. And Ms. Sebron represent one of the other slots, and I know her well, and I recommend her highly.
Great.
Good person.
Mr. White, would you like to make a motion?
I move that we endorse Ms. Sebron as the TASB director for position A, I think it is.
Yes. Thank you. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Wheat. Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thank you. Next item.
10, new business for possible board action. A, internal audit. 1, possible action regarding annual audit plan.
And this is Mrs. Lyerly, our auditor.
Yes.
It comes under somebody else.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here tonight, President Bresnahan, members of the board, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff, guests, to present the annual 2014-15 audit plan. So exciting for everyone.
Yes.
I'm going to go over just an overview of what I'm going to present. I begin explaining why we have an audit plan, give an overview of how I developed the audit plan, some results from this year, the key projects, our anti-fraud action plan, and then a recommendation to you, and we'll answer any questions that you have. We have an audit plan because it's required by law, which is a good reason. House Bill 1 set up that the internal auditor would report to the Board of Trustees, so that's what I do. I send you your reports, your review. Additionally to the standards that require it, it allows the board to provide guidance as to what you want your internal audit staff to look at. It provides a framework for determining what to look at. It provides better use of resources by having a plan to follow, and it also gives senior leadership at the district the opportunity to request assistance or oversight in their areas. So how do I go about developing this plan? I started out with meeting with senior management. I talked with Dr. Gotardi and request any information or meetings with the associate superintendents, and they provide input as to whether they have areas that they'd like us to look at, or they allow it to just be based on the risk assessment. So the next process is the 7 risk factors, which considers things like materiality, potential for fraud, change in resources and/or the management at that department, or change in programs. So that risk assessment is included in your package as attachment 1. And that provides risk-based, a numerical score to risk rank all of the areas that are auditable. And each year, since I've taken over as director, I've been doing some tweaking. I think I discussed that last year. We had adjusted the risk factors. And this year, I looked at all of the auditable entities, which is a huge laundry list, and determined that we were identifying actually separate processes within a department. And in audit theory, you would look at the department as the auditable entity and then determine each time you go into that department what you would scope in or out of the audit plan. So I kind of collapsed some of the areas to shorten the list and make it more comprehensive. So I got the laundry list. I have a list of items that should be receive the most attention this year. And then I do a kind of reasonable check on it to make sure that that's really what I think the district has concerns about. And then I prepare the plan for your approval. So these are the weighted factors, whether or not it was requested by the superintendent or associates, whether there's a potential for fraud, management controls in the area, and then it prioritized by a composite total score, and then the highest scores earn the spot on the to-do list. And sometimes I get questions that's like, okay, well, do I want to be at the top of the list or do I want to be at the bottom of the list? And of course, the ones at the top of the list do not mean that something's going wrong there. There's just a potential there. So some of the areas we do annually, period. It comes high on the risk ranking, but some of the areas we just do annually. Those are these. We review the superintendent's contract and expenses. It's a requirement of our policies. We assist the external auditors by doing the warehouse inventories, sending out management questionnaires. That goes to the executive staff and executive directors. That's a selection by our external auditors. And then bank confirmations. We do an annual review of American Express card. We refer to that as our P card. And then we do an annual review of conflict of interest or the annual disclosure statements. And we're doing an annual travel expenditure review. We also do CRMS. That's our computer equipment. We inventory that each year. So those we do is the standard. That's always included. It gives a good broad brush over the district to see how things are handled at a larger area. Then we look at campus audits, and they tend to, some of the high schools have more activity funds, as well as the change in leadership will cause those campuses to come to the top of the list. From there, we do special projects. Sometimes the superintendent or the board may ask me to do a project. We do quick turnaround, just real quick, can you let me know what you think about this? We receive the hotline. That would be by email, phone call, and actually I get walk-ins to tell me. That was new. And then sometimes just things come up, missing funds at a campus or in a department. Last year in our plan, we had the inventory of maintenance trucks, and we were not able to get to that, but it still bubbled towards the top of the list, so I want to continue to keep that on the plan. And then we always continually look at different things to look for fraud. We'll do just a quick review of campus accounts, pull transactions, that type of thing, just to see if we see anything, and if we do, then we would go out and do further investigation. So that's what we have planned for 2015. You also have the anti-fraud action plan, and I did not make any changes to that except to change the year. Part 1 talks about the measures we have to prevent, deter, or detect, and then Part 2 discusses the procedures we should follow if we identify a fraud. So just to recap what we've done this year, we did the superintendent's contract and expenses, CRMS. We're in the middle of doing the warehouse inventory. The travel expense review was done last fall. We did support the external audit. We're not doing as much as we have done in the past. In the past, we had done it to reduce our audit fees, but we negotiated a very good contract, don't tell them, that, so we haven't been called upon to do any more than what I discussed earlier. We only did 2 full campus audits this year because they tended to drag out on different issues there. And then the book fair financial review we did just to touch a larger number of campuses by looking at financial transactions, a sponsor, as well as the bookkeeper. You kind of touched a lot at 56 different campuses. So we did that and found some overpayments, and we've requested refunds for those. And then we had some special projects, and that's where the principals actually called and asked us to look at something at those campuses. And then last year, you had asked about the follow-up, the hotline follow-up, and what we actually received. So I broke down that to let you know what kind we're getting. So we had 29 total, 5 calls, 18 emails, 2 walk-ins, and then 4 direct calls or emails. And that means they actually called me directly or emailed me directly. Well, wrong way. Oh, and I did want to give you just some update. Of those 29 concerns, just so that you know, only 2 really resulted in work that the audit department needed to do. We had one where an employee was the concern that they were taking property from the district, and that was referred to the Northeast Police Department and personnel to handle. And then we had one where a caller from California, his credit card had been used on our website, and it was odd that they just got the number right. Very unusual. But just to give you an idea of what those are. So my request tonight is that you approve the new plan for the next year, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Lyerly. Do we have any questions?
I just have a quick question. You said that the campus audits, you did 2 this year. What's normal? Because you said they took a little bit longer.
How
many do
in
you
my
try to do?
experience, 2, 3 is the most we've been able to do when we're covering everything at a campus.
Okay.
And to give you an idea of what that means, that's we look at the cash, we look at purchase orders, purchased card expenses, activity funds, which is both campus and student, sponsors, attendance, withdrawal forms. So
it's a lot.
So it does take a little bit longer. We keep rethinking that, and I'm encouraging my staff to say, where are we looking to in-depth? Are we not looking at the right things, that stuff? So we continue to, that's a flexible plan. I don't say that you have to look at everything every time we go out. It depends on the campus.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes,
Mr.
briefly.
Reed?
I know that you said the risk assessment depends on how much that somebody might have, how much money there might be going out.
Yes.
I'm wondering, as far as that goes, does that cover bond projects or not?
That would be in the construction area.
Okay, so that's not your coverage.
No, construction bond at a campus may or may not affect the materiality for that campus, and that's one risk factor for each department.
Okay, so
Materiality.
you evaluate that.
It would be in their budget amount, yes.
Okay, I noticed Amex had a $12 million budget
American Express.
plan. Yes. Is that unusual?
As far as the budget amount, or,
Yes.
I mean,
As far as the budget amount goes?
no,
No?
not that I'm aware of,
So
no.
12 million, and that would be for various expenses?
Well, it depends. I think what I pulled was that, I'd have to look at it.
But didn't you
Answer
say
that.
Amex, isn't that mandatory?
Well, it's a mandatory audit.
Yeah.
From that perspective, but as far as budget, Mr. Villarreal, I
Mr.
don't know.
Villarreal?
It's going to vary every month what we charge on American Express.
Yes, sir. What
So
we
it's
do
the
is,
purchases.
we run a lot of our purchases that are day-to-day sometimes, so because we get a rebate. Like last year, I think we got a rebate from American Express for like $160,000. So we're running that through those purchases. So there is a budget for that, and it's never out of line. It's just something that if we could use a P card for, we use it so we can get the rebate.
Okay.
But you
I mean-
classify it accordingly. You move that money. And
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
whatever's being used, I mean, for each budget or for campus, if they use it, or for executive director, whoever, if they use it for travel or whatnot, we take that budget and it's applied to either travel or 6399, which is miscellaneous expenses or things of that type. So it's all categorized.
So even though it says 12 million, and we will see that on the consent item later, it would be divided between different budgets.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's all assigned. I mean, we allocate to all the different budgets. I mean, you can't spend more than you get budgeted for, so, I mean, we make sure of that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Mrs. Larley, I have a question regarding the anonymous allegations.
Yes.
I think you probably answered it, but just to be sure, sometimes is there a correlation with those allegations and your risk rank priority? Has anything that has come in through that affected the way you rank your projects?
There's not been one that would affect it
Okay.
to date. Because it's typically an isolated, I haven't had a report that a department is doing something incorrectly. It would be an individual. And the others are personnel type issues
Right.
that I've passed on to personnel and/or their associate superintendent, depending on the matter. And that wouldn't affect the risk for that department or necessarily that campus, because it's typically an individual act.
Right.
So no,
Does not.
in and of itself, it does not. No, ma'am.
But is there anything that you use to test your model and how you rank or just experience?
Experience.
Yeah.
And I think we discussed that last year
We
when I
did.
said that I tweaked the risk factors,
Yeah.
and you asked, how would I know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing?
Sure.
It would depend on what I looked at last year, whether there were problems or not. So
Okay.
if everything that I'd put on the plan that we completed
Correct.
was clean, maybe we're not looking at the right risk
Right.
factors.
Yeah.
And that was not the case.
But you feel like, your methodology is sound.
I think it's pretty sound, yes, ma'am.
It seems
And-
it's very comprehensive, very impressive.
Well,
It
I
really
appreciate
is.
it's something that was developed before I got here.
Well,
But
it's a good tool.
I do, last year and the year before, or actually probably the first year after I was director, I
Yep.
reviewed and actually asked some of the other districts for their risk analysis. And that's
Okay.
when I tweaked ours with the risk factors, because they didn't have as many as we had, and I kind of felt like it was lessening the impact of each risk factor by having 15 of them versus 7.
Sure.
So that's why I did that. And each year, we should look at it.
Yeah,
So-
I agree with that. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, thank you for your hard work. I appreciate
No
it.
problem.
We all appreciate it. Do I have a motion for the internal audit plan?
I move we approve the audit plan as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Huey. Second?
Second.
Mrs. Wolf, thank you. Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Next item. Thank you again.
B, board policy. 1, possible action regarding board policy EIF local, second reading.
And this is Mrs. Hawkins.
Thank you, President Bresnahan, board members, and Dr. Gotardi. Colleen Foreman, Executive Director for Curriculum Compliance, will make this presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have tonight for you the second reading of EIF, the TASB Update 99, representing changes in the law from the 83rd Texas Legislature. Included in Update 99 was policy EIF legal that addressed the changes to the graduation program. Last month you approved it with the first reading. Policy EIF does address the specific graduation program for Northeast ISD students. Policy EIF local states that all Northeast students entering the 9th grade in 2014-15 and beyond will be defaulted to the distinguished level of achievement. It's our recommendation the board approve the second reading of policy EIF local as submitted.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions, Mrs. Borman? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Next item.
2, possible action regarding board policy EIE local.
And this is Dr. Newman? No,
This
this is Mrs. Hawkins, sorry.
It is, and actually,
Okay.
Mrs. Borman will also handle this item.
Continue.
Tonight, I'm requesting approval for a resolution of the board to suspend a portion of EIE local. It's a little different. So I'm going to give you some background information. In 2012, the State Board of Education reviewed and revised the TEKS for math in grades K through 8, as well as high school mathematics courses. The 2014-15 school year will be the first year to implement the TEKS for grades kinder through 8th grade. TEA has indicated that due to the extensive nature of the changes in the math TEKS for kindergarten through 8th grade, the STAR testing program for students in grades 3 through 8 will be significantly impacted by these changes. So the spring 2015 STAR mathematics assessment for students in grades 3 through 8 will involve a unique administration based on the curriculum frameworks created by the revised TEKS. Because of this unique administration, only the raw score will be communicated to the district. Retakes for the mathematics in grades 5 and 8 will not be available. And the SSI grade advancement requirements for Math STAR will not apply. The SSI grade advancement requirements, however, will continue to apply for reading, STAR reading. So when we take a look at our EIE local policy, it states that grade advancement testing provisions require the students in grades 5 and 8 to meet the passing standard on both reading and math assessments in order to be promoted to the next grade level. Because the grade advancement requirements under the SSI will be altered only for the 14-15 school year and only in mathematics, TASB Policy Service recommends that the board suspend the local policy provisions relating to the successful performance on the mathematics assessment as a condition of promotion for the upcoming school year. If we choose not to approve this resolution, the board will need to revise EIE local twice, prior to 14-15 school year, and then again when the performance standards have been set and the SSI grade advancement requirements are once again applied. To accomplish the suspension of grade advancement requirements for the performance on mathematics assessment, I've enclosed a resolution, and we're seeking approval for that resolution. Districts are required to notify parents and students of grade advancement requirements by the beginning of each school year. So it is important to communicate any of our actions tonight to suspend these requirements to our parents. We are seeking that you recommend the board approve the resolution to suspend portions of EIE local for the 2014-15 school year only as presented.
That's
Thank
a
you.
move.
Do we have any questions, Mrs. Borman? Mr. White?
I move that we approve EIE local as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mrs. Wolf, second. Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Borman.
Thank you.
Next item.
3, possible action regarding board policy DK local, first reading.
And this is Dr. Newman.
Yes, ma'am. President Bresnahan, members of the board, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff, I would like to ask Gina Elliott, our Senior Director for Human Resources, to address this item.
Good evening.
Good evening.
TASB recently made a recommendation regarding current local policy DK. This is the policy that governs assignment and schedules. We ask that the board consider TASB's recommendation to clarify existing language concerning the payment of supplemental duties to exempt employees as it is submitted.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Elliott. Do we have any questions for Mrs. Elliott? It was pretty straightforward. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve DK local, first reading.
Thank you, Mrs. Huey. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item.
C, campus support. 1, possible action regarding student code of conduct.
Dr. Newman.
President Bresnahan, members of the board, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff, and guests, I'd like for Ann McNabb, our Executive Director of Student Support Services, to address the student code of conduct.
Good evening, and thank you.
Good evening.
We've got a new school year right around the corner. That's why you see me up here today. And I'm here to ask for your recommendation and adoption of the 2014-15 Student Code of Conduct. You have been given a copy of that to review. This satisfies a state requirement, a yearly one, that's specified in Texas Education Code 37.001. The Code of Conduct is very specific and has to contain new legislations and updates as necessary. This is not a legislative year, so you're not going to really see any changes in the Student Code of Conduct. One that I will point out that was added at our discretion as a district, and based on what we've seen in the past and what is becoming more and more popular with teens, is e-cigarettes and hookah pipes. So we have been very specific, although we always have others, so we cover those new trends, but this is trending enough that we wanted to get very specific, so we added that in the category 4 and also upfront prohibited that. Along with tobacco products, we also ban any use or possession of e-cigarettes and hookah pipes and oils of that nature. The rest of it is a little tweak of words here and there to make it read a little bit easier to the general public. The Student Code of Conduct is presented to everyone in our community and stakeholders and beyond, because we post both English and Spanish version of our student parent handbook and then of the Student Code of Conduct alone on our website. And we also announce that and have a document that goes out to parents yearly. And if a parent does want a written copy, we provide that as well. But we've cut a lot of costs when we got ahead of the game 5 years ago and started posting everything on the website. So I felt very comfortable with that communication piece.
Thank you, Ms. McNabb. Do we have questions for Ms. McNabb?
Briefly,
Mr. White? I mean, Mr. Wheat?
whichever, white or wheat.
Mr. Wheat.
One of the bread types.
Mr. Fleagle, come on.
The significant changes you said were e-cigarettes, and what are the big changes?
There are none, because it's in line with the legislation that came earlier. This wasn't a legislative year, so there were no changes as far as what's in a category and what's mandatory for DAP placements, what is discretionary, which means we have the discretion to decide whether or not a student has reached a point that meets a standard in a removal from the campus for DAP or suspensions in that area. What I wanted you to know is in the Student Code of Conduct, we specifically added, and not just tried to skirt it under the carpet of other, that we are banning e-cigarettes and hookah pipes. But that's just at our discretion that we can do that as a district.
Because that was the discretionary change that you made.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. McNabb, I had a question regarding electronic devices or wireless communication. In the Student Code of Conduct, it talks about using, on page 49, misusing an electronic or wireless communication device during an unauthorized time or in an unauthorized location. And then it goes on to talk about misuse. I guess my question is, how does this align with our board policy? And I know that there's been a lot of change, or that's a very dynamic piece with the use of electronic devices for educational purposes.
Correct.
Can you weigh in on that?
Cyberbullying and the use
Exactly.
of social network.
Right.
And there are different times, again, age appropriateness. There are some schools that allow the use of their electronics during lunch. And
Okay.
still during that time, we put some boundaries and expectations that you're not in social network abusing it and harassing through that. If we find that, we address that. If a school, in a school, they can use their iPads if they bring
Sure.
in, or their laptops.
Yeah.
So the teachers are very, I wouldn't say used strict, but in classroom management, very clear of the expectations and where they can go and how they can use that electronic. And it's got to be academic academically connected.
Okay.
If they're venturing outside of those boundaries that is established in our CHAMPS procedures and boundaries and rules and expectations of the use of the tool, then it's addressed by the administration and through the student code of conduct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And it's very dynamic.
Well, it's
Every
dynamic
year
and
we
it's
have to look at,
it's
okay,
hard
this
to
is a
keep-
new
Sure.
way, this is a new adventure. We didn't realize this was a back door here, and then we address it.
Well, I want it to be very clear so that
Oh,
we all
yes.
understand.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that's also reviewed through the technology classes, as well as the proper use. We go above and beyond helping the students understand what's acceptable and not just at school, but outside.
Sure. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone? Okay, we've got 2 people that have signed up to speak regarding this topic. I believe we have 2. So the first one is Mr. Coster, and I'll have. Well, let me read the rules of engagement, and then we'll go through the 2, because we've got a question for the second person that signed up. So in regards to matters from the floor, the trustees welcome comments from members of the public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting, although members may request further information or a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 5 minutes. Which is 3. So 3 minutes, because this is agendized. They are not permitted to make personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised during the district's grievance policies, a personnel action, a student disciplinary matter, a complaint about a particular student, or pending litigation. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail care of the superintendent's office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, 78217. Mrs. Huey?
We have one person who did sign up for code of conduct, and that's Bob Coster, and a second person I'll question afterwards.
Mr. Coster?
Name and address.
Yes, if we could just have your name and address.
Sure. My name is Bob Coster, and I live at 4118 Diamond Head Drive. I just have a kind of a little written thing here, so
Yes,
I'll kind of
sir.
read off of it and maybe editorialize a little bit too. There's no single issue that affects student safety, teacher safety, bus safety, academic achievement, teacher performance, location of enrollment, dropout rates, juvenile crime, neighborhood community, and property values greater than the issues of student behavior in school. As faithful stewards of this community's trust, there is a need to examine what is actually beneficial for this community as you consider adopting this code of conduct. Part of the handbook is mandated by the state. Some is common sense, and others are to cover all legal bases. So here's a question. Is the handbook relevant and meaningful for students and parents? A question to ask. Is it simplified for practical use? And what percentage of parents and students have actually gone online to read it? Though the handbook has good elements for behavior in it, I identified that there's 3 flaws. First, the responsibility for students' behavior is on the shoulders of the school. Second, it's written with low expectations for student behavior. And third, it's tied to funding. Funding, attendance, and behavior are linked together, and funding based on attendance takes precedent over behavior. There is therefore a conflict of interest as the handbooks become only a legal posting, and elevated expectations of excellence and behavior is a casualty. So I just had something that I wanted to just kind of throw to you all here. And that was this. You're all members here, and as board members, that's great, but you're also have the opportunity to just be a regular part of the community too. And what I want to encourage you to do, because the student behavior has always been such a serious issue. Approximately 25% of kids are constantly getting in trouble on a regular basis. It really affects performance of schools. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'd like to encourage you all, just as members of the community, to become a mentor. Pick one of the schools that's underperforming, and just go ahead and become a mentor to a kid. Get to know their families. Get to know their friends. Get to know their classmates. Get to know their teachers. Ride the school bus with them. Listen to their hopes and dreams. And I promise you that as board members, you'll learn more about what's going on within the schools concerning behavior for kids and how to effectively address this than any other thing you can possibly do. If as a board you never accomplish anything other than the behavior of your priority in the whole school
Sorry,
year,
Mr. Costa, your time is up. Thank you very much. Mrs.
And we have a
Huey?
second name that signed up under student behavior, and I wasn't sure if this is what you wanted to address, Margaret Elizondo. Is it-
Yes? Okay, so this
So
does
not
not have to do
code
with
of
the student
conduct?
code of conduct.
It encompasses a little bit, but it's more fitted for matters from the floor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Huey?
And that's all we have for speakers.
So we need to have any other questions, discussion? We need to have a motion.
I move to approve the adoption of the 2014-2015 Student Code of Conduct as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolf. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. White. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you, and thank you, Ms. McNabb. Next item. That's okay. Take your time.
Two, possible action regarding memorandum of understanding, MOU, for the Bexar County Juvenile Justice Academy, JJA.
Dr. Newman.
President Bresnahan, I would like to ask Ann McNabb to remain at the podium to address this item as well.
Ms. McNabb, remain at the podium.
This is my time of the year, right?
Yes, it
before the
is.
school year
Absolutely.
starts. We do have some things to satisfy as far as state requirements. And the second one here is the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, which is an annual approval for the Bexar County Juvenile Board and our operation of JJA. We have an MOU committee that represents different districts within Bexar County. This year it was at Short, Cibolo, Edgewood, North Side, and Northeast as far as the MOU committee. And then they present it to other districts that are within the JJA's umbrella of service. The district pay did not, the daily rate has not changed, nothing is there. The memorandum of understanding that we've worked on over the years has been a good solid document. The only changes that we saw necessary as a committee that we presented to everyone was just tweaking the words and understanding and the communication. We don't expect it during the holidays and weekends. And the testing responsibilities was just more specific verbiage on JJA, where they need to have a person that is responsible for communicating and working with the testing coordinators. And Laura Woody helped us finalize some documents there so that it would be easier for all districts. The rest of it was satisfactory to all the districts, and every one of the districts are going to the board, like I am today, seeking your approval. And then President Bresnahan, you have to sign off on a document. And then at that point, it goes back to the Bexar County judges.
So there was consensus within the committee?
Correct.
For this
And
MOU?
within all the districts
All the
that we
districts.
represent.
Mhm. Do we have questions for Ms. McNabb?
Just a curiosity question. I noticed that, that there is a limit on the enrollment. Has that enrollment ever been an issue where it says there's rules of the enrollment, which
In
is
case
300?
the seats are full and
Yes.
look at other districts. And
Right.
if there's a need, then they look at their percentage and say, I'll give you 2 of our seats. We have not had that issue. That's only happened, actually, it was more than 10 years ago. And the way that we have got JJ set up and looking at different terms and the amount of time, we've not run into that problem.
That's great.
Yes.
That is great. And how many seats did we have? I'm sorry, I missed it. Yeah.
There's not a requirement to have seats unless it's necessary.
Okay.
So there is no set
Specific
seats.
allocation?
Right.
Okay.
And that's only set up because you never want to have a district that needs to send a student that's met the requirement for an expulsion. You never want JJ to say, we can't service that job.
Right.
And there's always plenty of seats. There has been that 1 year when there was an incredible run on mandatory reasons across Bear County, and it was a lot on drugs, that really made JJ nervous about their student-teacher ratio. So we put that in.
Great, okay. I'm glad to hear it's not been needed. Thanks.
Right. Other questions for Ms. McNabb? Okay, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the 2014-2015 Memorandum of Understanding between the Bear County Juvenile Board and the Northeast ISD as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolf. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. Next item. Thank you so much, Ms. McNabb, and we appreciate everything you do for our kids.
D, Business Services. 1, possible action regarding health and dental insurance premiums.
This is Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Gottardi, executive staff, and guests. Steve Tovar is at the podium, and we'll be discussing this health insurance and dental insurance premiums. We did bring up these topics during our budget workshop, where the district contribution is going up from the $356 a month to $377. But we wanted to bring you this tonight just to show you an overview of the health of our health insurance. So hopefully it'll be a quick talk, but with that, I'll turn it over to Steve Tovar.
Is that some sort of euphemism?
Yes,
that
ma'am.
I'm not getting?
The health of our health.
I was
Yes.
trying.
Okay, Mr. Tovar. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yes, thank you.
Clean that up.
And yes, I assure you, it'll be a very short presentation. We will go over the health plan, our self-funded health plan, and the dental plan. Good news on healthcare reform update is that they did a delay on the employer mandate. Originally, it was 95 that you had to offer coverage to 95% of your employees. For 2015, they reduced that down to 70%. Northeast as an employer very easily will meet that. And we offer benefits to all our employees at 20 hours, excluding temps and subs. However, in 2016, that employer mandate is reinstated, and it'll be at the 95% level. Employers will pay a penalty for each full-time employee who receives a subsidy in the exchange. However, that penalty is $3,000. It is possible that if we don't offer benefits to temps and subs, and they go to the exchange and are deemed to be a full-time employee, that we could be assessed a $3,000 penalty, and we will pay that penalty if that does occur, but it's only for an individual that actually goes to the exchange, qualifies for the subsidy. But our district contribution is $4,272, so the penalty of $3,000 is less than that district contribution. This is our average enrollment for 2013 was 6,444 with 2,489 participating in hospital indemnity. We're currently running about 6,492 in our health plans and 2,397 in our hospital indemnity. With 6,492 participating, that means that 73% of our employees participate in our health plan at a cost of $38 million to the district and $19.4 million to the employees, for a total of $57.4 million. In addition to covering our employees at 6,492, we also cover their dependents. We cover 7,078. So that means that 13,570 members on our health plan. This is just a historical chart to depict that historically The district contributes about 2/3 of the premiums, and the employees participate at about 1/3. This is a comparison of our low option plan. Our low option employee-only rate is $95, which falls right in the middle of Northside's two plans. They're $2,000 deductible and $750 deductible. On the employee and family, again, we fall right in the middle of those two plans. Our family rate is $390.
Steve, if I can interject one real quick. On those rates from the other districts, sometimes we haven't been able to get all the detail having to do with the $30, but you know, when you try to compare apples to apples, it's kind of difficult. Sure. A lot of times what some districts are doing is they're paying a little bit more on the district contribution for the employee only. And they like ours is tiered equally amongst all our categories. A lot of the districts have gone to supplementing more of, say, the employee-only cost. That's why it might be only $30 and not as much on the family, or a combination of both, to try to make it more reasonable for some of their employees. So when you do look at some of the districts, especially to our neighbors, the $30 can signify that the district is putting more into that portion, and also their pharmacy costs might be a little bit different than what we're charging. We just could never get exactly what they were offering. They're coming out with a new plan. They just went to a new carrier. So once we get more information, I can pass it along. But when you see that disparity, it's not necessarily apples to apples.
Right. Thank you.
We also do a comparison to TRS Active Care. We compare it to the TRS Active Care 2. Our rate for a total rate for employee only is $451, and theirs is $529. For family, our total is $746, and theirs is $1323. This is our current benefit structure. We offer the low option PPO, high option PPO, the low option being an 80-20 plan, and the high option being a 90-10 plan. And then the individual deductibles are displayed, $1,500 and $1,000, and then the maximum coinsurance, $4,000 and $2,000. We've got office visits of 25, 35, urgent care 45, hospital deductible of 100, and the ER copay at 200. Our pharmacy is 15, 30, and 60. And we will talk about the pharmacy, one slight change to the pharmacy in an upcoming slide. This is just how our healthcare dollars are spent. 34% of every dollar is spent on professionals, that's your doctors. 19.6% is spent inpatient. Outpatient is 18.4%. Pharmacy is 21.3%, and administrative costs are 6.6%.
And on the pharmacy side, that's come down. There for a while, we were at 25%, so we were heavily medicated, but we're starting to see that coming down a little bit, because the averages.
Not medicated enough.
The averages are supposed to be in the teens. That's what everybody tells us that your pharmacy cost should be. So we're getting those costs.
We're moving in the right direction.
We're moving in the right direction, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve.
This is just an overview of the claims loss ratio. Our low option was running at an 85% claims loss ratio, which is good. The high option at 142%. The HMO, which was our last year, at 123%. And then right below that, we list the high-cost claimants. We had 162 high-cost claimants for a total of $15.7 million just on the 162, which represented about 30% of the total claims. So that's eye-opening. This is an overview of our budget. Gives you some historical, starting with 11. You know, in that year we lost $9 million. In 12, 3.2. 13, we turned it around and we had a gain of $1.1 million. For the 14, we adopted a $1.1 million deficit, but in a later slide you'll see that we don't anticipate that deficit to occur. So starting the 2015 budget, we project the revenue to be at $57.4 million. Our projected expenses are $58.9 million, so we're starting off with $1.5 million deficit before we make any premium or benefit plan changes. Just to give you an idea of the pharmacy costs, the average generic runs us about $23.97. Our brand drugs run us $241.79, and specialty drugs run on average $3,115. Specialty pharmacy has increased by 16.8% in 2013, even though they're 0.5% of the total claims, they represent 16% of the total pharmacy spend. Specialty pharmacy projections from Blue Cross are that they're going to grow and continue to grow, and could be 50% of your total pharmacy spend by 2018. That is a little scary.
Very scary.
Why?
Specialty drugs are your most expensive drugs. Those are the ones that they are coming out with, and they are producing more and more specialty drugs, combination drugs, compared to the generics or the brands that they've been offering. So.
All those kids were sending to medical school.
Yeah. So I think of a specialty drug like chemotherapy. Is that what we're talking about?
It could be a chemotherapy drug. There's many different types that they do offer. Specialty drugs have been around.
Yeah.
It's just that the projection is that they are going to take a bigger piece of the pie in the coming years. We do have a couple of pharmacy changes. One of them is that in 2015, our employees and their dependents will now be able to get immunizations at a pharmacy. Currently, immunizations are not covered under our pharmacy benefit. That means that if they go to Walgreens, CVS, HEB and get a shot, they would have to pay for it and file a claim under their medical. So with this change, they can actually, and I'm sure you've seen the signs, immunizations here at CVS or Walgreens.
Sure.
They'll be able to get those type of immunizations at the pharmacy and pay their copay there.
Yeah.
As in each year, Blue Cross recommends changes for utilization management, like prior authorization. That would be an estimated savings of $8,000. Specialty pharmacy to try and start to address the growing trend in specialty pharmacy. We're adding a fourth tier to our copays. And so for specialty pharmacy, a formulary specialty would run $60 and a non-formulary would run $150 for an estimated savings of about $29,000. So the total changes are about $37,000 on the pharmacy. And we don't have any other benefit changes to the plans. Those were the only two plan changes that we were making on the pharmacy side, none on the medical side. So with this benefit structure change, as you can see here, really the only change here is that we're adding the copay for formulary specialty of $60 and non-formulary at $150. Premium increases. Normally, the district contribution would increase with the fiscal year of July 1. We're asking for a delay in that increase to coincide it with the plan year. That means that the district contribution would stay the same at $356 all the way through December, and then it would increase to the $377 come January. That means we would only get revenue for this one time for the first 6 months. A 6% increase would be $1,160,000 to bring it up to $377. On the employee side, it's a 2.5% increase, and we'll see those rates on a later slide. both for the low option and high option, which generates about $120,000 on each plan. These are the increases. On the low option, the increase is as low as $2 on employee, and the high is $10 on family. On the high option, the employee only increase is $6, and the family is $15. So with the projected revenue of $57.4 million and the recommended funding being $58.9, our expected claims are $54.5, claims processing $3.5, healthcare reform new fees $0.9. That leaves us that $1.5 million deficit. But we will get 1.16 from the district, 0.12 for each, the low and the high, and the pharmacy change of 0.04 gives us a total change of 1.44, which leaves us basically with a balanced budget, that 0.06. And this is just to summarize, revenue would be 58.8, expenses 58,860, a loss of 60,000 projected from the projected beginning net assets of 8.8 million, and still leaves us with 1.8 months of expenditures.
Thank you, Mr. Tovar.
Questions?
Do you have any questions for Mr. Tovar?
There were just 2 more slides on the dental.
I'm sorry.
I'll make it quick.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
The dental
Got it.
projected for 13-14 is a decrease of 78,000. No changes to the plan. Funding projected $3,690,000. Recommended funding $3,670,000. Projected excess of 20,000, and then we'd still end up with 3.9 months of expenditures. That's it.
And if
Any
I can
questions?
add, you know, the changes we've made the last few years, we've done some changes to our premium structure and also to our benefit structure, probably starting around 2011. And the reason was to try to, you know, curtail some of these increases that we're seeing. So some of that has taken effect. That's what's allowing us to be able to keep offering what we're offering. So we're always looking at it, and we're always trying to dissect and look at what else we can do to try to keep this plan viable for all our employees. That's why this year we're able to not to have to go up too much in our premiums or do plan changes like we had in the past. So, you know, hopefully that'll sustain us for a little bit, and we can get ahead of the curve. We're still healthy in our fund balance. So I just wanted to mention that, you know, we did do those changes a few years back, and you know, some of them were hard to do with the premium change and the plan changes. But this year we're able to do as minimal as possible.
Your increase seems to be at a lower percentage.
Yes, ma'am. You know, when we went those 5 years not increasing,
Exactly.
there probably was, but we, you know, we were sitting on almost $20 million.
Right.
And we were able to use that to sustain the increases.
Sure.
It was a very, very, very rich plan, and I think we still think it's a very good plan, a very rich plan. But as the pressures mount every year with single-digit and sometimes double-digit increases in your medical and your pharmacy, to try to manage that and to make sure to keep it as minimal as possible, you know, we really look at it and we really work at it.
And when you say to keep as minimal as possible, you mean the fund balance?
No, I was talking about like the premium changes or
Changes in
the
general.
changes
Okay.
in general. I know
Yeah.
we went up quite a bit,
Yes.
because I mean, we went from like $250 total deductible to now $2,000 over the course of those 4 years. But that's something that we needed to do, and the $250 was really, really, really low for total out of pocket, and that was putting a lot of pressure on our plan.
I see. Do we have any questions? Mr. Tovar, Mr. Villarreal?
Yes.
Mr. Hui?
Who does the evaluation on especially the pharmacy request or the special request that we have to make? Who does the evaluation of those?
The evaluation of
A request for a special treatment, a request for a special,
you know,
whatever it is.
We pay Blue Cross to administer the program. And I hope I'm answering your question in that they're the ones that process all the claims for us. So is that what you're asking about?
Based on the pharmacy request, for instance, somebody's requesting a drug that is a new drug, a drug that
Right,
has
so-
not been tested, a drug that may be out on the edge.
Right.
What happens then?
So Blue Cross is the one that has the plan. They have the pharmacy plan. So they're the ones that have the drug list. And so that's when, if it's on Blue Cross's formulary list, the copay would be $60. If it's not on the Blue Cross list, then it would be a $150 copay.
Okay, so for more experimental type of procedures, where does that go to? Let's say somebody has cancer.
Right, that would still stay with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I mean,
Okay.
Right.
we don't get involved in individual requests. I mean, sometimes they come to us and because of HIPAA concerns, we don't know who's got what or what's going on. An occasion, though, they'll try to come to us and say, hey, can y'all make an exception? And this is the reasoning behind it. So they sometimes, very, very rare, they come to us, but mainly it's through the Blue Cross doctors. Now, they can appeal. There's an appeal process that employees can go through, or their dependents, and ask for different types of procedures through their doctor, up the chain through Blue Cross. But Blue Cross kind of holds the key. We're self-funded, but we pay them to administer the whole plan.
Okay. So we fund it, but they make the decisions.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I mean, it's like we're buying their network.
Yes.
And that way, it kind of keeps everything clean. We don't make exceptions, and nobody can accuse us of saying, okay, we picked this exception over this exception. So it's a lot cleaner.
We don't get involved in the adjudication of the claims or those decisions. Blue Cross handles that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheat. Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the employee premiums and district contributions for the 2015 plan year.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wheat. Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor?
I was just
Yes.
going to say,
Yes, sir.
apparently, the health insurance is good.
Yeah.
It's healthy, it's healthy.
Mr. Villarreal agrees with that.
The health of the health insurance is healthy.
Yes.
Nice.
Well said. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Next item.
2, possible action regarding fund balance commitments.
Okay. This is Mr. Villarreal.
Yes, Madam President. Every year, we have to bring a resolution to y'all having to do with GASB 54, requesting that we commit some of these funds. And those are the categories of the funds that we need to commit.
Okay.
If there's any questions in detail, I can try to answer.
Do we have questions in detail? General questions? Okay.
Fund balance commitment.
No questions. Thank you anyway for your offering. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the employee premiums and district. I'm
The
on
next
wrong
one.
I'm
Next
so
one,
sorry.
Mrs. Perkins.
Oh, I went backwards. I went to the wrong, somebody else
okay.
do it. I did it the wrong spot. I apologize.
Approve the resolution committing certain fund balance amounts as of June 30, 2014.
Excellent. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wheat. Any other questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you. Next item.
Got it? Okay. E, consent. 1, business services. A, bid items. B, annual over $50,000 purchases. C, bid extension items. D, 2014-2015 cooperative purchasing contracts report. 2, construction. A, 2011 bond, MacArthur and Johnson High School, construction manager at risk, campus improvement project bid award approval. B, 2011 bond, JROTC rifle range electronic target and scoring systems procurement bid award approval. C, Driscoll Middle School, Central Energy Plant chemical water treatment contracted services bid authorization, maintenance, and operations program. 3, end of consent.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a board member who wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda?
I would like to remove 2A for discussion and questions.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 2A?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, other discussion? Oh, there could be no discussion, all right. Mrs. Wolf? Oh, yes, I'm
All
sorry,
in
we need to
favor.
vote.
Vote first.
Got to carry.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Next item?
All right, we're going back to E2A, 2011 bond, MacArthur and Johnson High School, construction manager at risk, campus improvement project bid award approval.
Mr. Clary? This be? Oh, yeah, Mrs. Wolf, what's your question? Thank you.
Thank you. I just know there was a lot of changes that were made, and I was wondering if you could share a little bit about the cost savings and the trees that were saved.
Absolutely. Mr. Jorge Cabello is here and will share that information with you.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of the school board, Dr. Guattardi, executive staff, friends and family of Northeast, I'm pleased to provide a response to the question of Ms. Moore. The school district did value engineering at the MacArthur High School Campus Improvement Bond Program project. Typically, when we bid out a project, we provide addendums. In this particular case, there were addendums, but typically we provide in our project unit prices, and we provide as well line items so we can identify alternates. I'm sorry, that's the number I was trying to think. In this particular case, we decided to keep the project very simple. We find ourselves in a very unique situation in the bid market community with subcontractors. So we decided not to put any alternates in our project. We told the contractor, just give me a base bid of lump sum price. We do that because we do not want to complicate the base bid price. It came in over budget, and we did a value engineering. We called it value engineering because we had no alternates. Had we had alternates on bid date, then we would have selected which alternates we can afford on bid date and which alternates we cannot afford on bid date. So because we had no alternates, we went ahead and did an extensive value engineering project. And in your board package, there is a list of those value engineering items that we evaluated with the project architect and the general contractor, and we are making a recommendation to bring the project back into budget by accepting those value engineering items. The amount of value engineering items that is being proposed and selected by the project architect and the engineer is $1,486,534. And it comprises of removing brick pavers. We have extensive brick pavers at MacArthur High School, and we elected to remove those as a value engineering item. We have campuses that do not have brick pavers. We have campuses that do have brick pavers, but in particular at MacArthur, we did not have any brick pavers to the extent that we had on the base bid plan. We had canopies, awnings, that we had included in the bid price. Had we included that as an alternate on bid date, we would have eliminated that. But as I mentioned, we did not add alternates on bid date because we wanted to give the contractors a very clean, simple package to bid. It's very complicated on bid date for contractors to bid their projects. And if we complicate it as an owner by providing different alternates, they are trying to figure out what the base bid is amount, and then trying to change the base bid and what the alternate amount is. And it's worked very well for us to eliminate or minimize the number of alternates in our bid package.
And I think a lot of us thought that there was a lot of creativity that went into where you moved some things to really save some money too.
That is correct. We provided the JROTC building. Originally it was situated on the south end of the campus, And we situated that there initially because one of the criteria of the JRTC is to have the quadrangle in that building separate and apart from the common activities of the campus. So we situated that there in the south end. After further evaluation and as a value engineering option, we elected to put the JROTC in quadrangle in the heart of the campus where the current band marching pad is situated. And that was savings, that brought some savings to the district because our utility lines were shortened. So canopies, brick pavers, relocation of the quadrangle in the JRTC from its original location to its present location that we're recommending, and other strategies with using poured-in-place flat work concrete brings our value engineer amount to the amount that we're recommending.
Right. Well done.
So you're confident this is the optimal plan?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We feel, again, had we taken the option of providing alternates on bid day, we wouldn't be having a discussion about value engineering. We would have identified what we can afford on bid day and what we didn't. But as a district, we, again, want to make it very convenient for the subcontractors and the general contractor on bid day to give us a lump sum price without any complexities. And because we find ourselves in a very unique situation where it is a subcontractor's market.
Yes.
We found ourselves being over budget. And it was a surprise to all of us, to the construction manager, to the project architect, to the school district. And we put our heads together. We came up with a very intelligent, cost-effective plan to bring us back into closer to our budget.
And all the stakeholders agree with, they concur with what you've come up with?
Absolutely.
Good.
We met with all the
That's good.
design team, with the project, the campus, all the interested parties, and they all agree with what we're recommending tonight.
Excellent.
And I applaud you for being fiscally responsible
Yeah.
too, saving us some money,
Yeah.
saving some trees. That was one of the reasons we wanted to pull this item, was to really shine some light on this, that you had worked very hard on it to not only have it come in on budget, but also use some creative methodology to kind of meet the goals.
It was collaborative. It was a collective with
impressive.
the campus administration, the principal, the project architect, the construction manager. We have the benefit of having a CM at risk project. They all came collectively together, and we came up with this ideas that is the best, in the best interest for the school district.
And Ms. Wolf, as you mentioned, it
Yeah.
did save having to eliminate some trees
Yay.
that are currently in the parking lot. So
Great.
we were very excited about that.
Thank you.
Dr. Gotardi, did you want to make a
Yeah,
comment?
I'm sure that you get this, but I just want to make sure that we state it. When we're
Please.
value engineering, we're not value engineering anything that was promised to the taxpayers when they went to the polls to vote for the bond. We're looking at ways that we can deliver the same things that were promised,
Right.
but at a cheaper value.
Of course.
That's exactly what Jorge went through this evening, but I just want to make sure that for you, as well as anybody in the audience, you know that everything that was promised to the taxpayers will be delivered.
Mr. Cabello, is there anyone you'd like to introduce that's part of your group right now, or that had anything to do with this item?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, I would like to introduce four individuals that are here with us this evening. The architect, Mr. James Davis, principal architect, and with him is Jorge Flores, the project architect for Garza Baumberger. As well, joining us is Mr. and Mrs. Tom and Marianne Guido with Guido Brothers.
Yeah.
They've been very instrumental, very effective in helping us design for the past 14 months. And they are here in support of our agenda item, our recommendation. And they're also very instrumental in the design. And we thank you for all the work that you've done to date in the design and bidding this project. Thank you much.
Well, and to all of you, I just want you to know, and I know most of you know this, we spend a lot of times on our school campuses, and families get to enjoy the beautiful buildings that all of you have a part of making happen for all of us. So it's important, and we appreciate your vigilance, and we really appreciate your fiscal responsibility, because that's one of our primary objectives as board members. And we take a lot of pride also in going to our school campus and seeing these beautiful buildings that are that we all get to enjoy. So thank you very much.
Madam President, I
Yes,
can't say
sir.
enough about the Guidos and Garza Bombardier in their flexibility in working with us to make some changes that we felt were best for the campus. And it would not have happened without them being flexible and understanding our needs.
Well, then we as a board also extend our thanks because it's very important to us as well, and we know it's a difficult job. So thank you. So Mrs. Wolf, would you like to make a motion?
I would, thank you. I move to approve consent item 2A as discussed.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolf. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Next item.
11, reports. A, financial statement, review of expenditures.
Okay, and those have been provided to all of us via email
B, quarterly investment report.
as well.
12, matters from the floor.
Okay, so I have already read the script. Mrs. Huey? Okay, and please, when you come up to the podium, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes to address the board.
Tim Warwick.
Thank you. Tim Warwick, 16603 Calico Creek Drive. When you read the rules of engagements, I was kind of amused because I'm a retired Navy officer. And this rule of engagement ends with us not going to general quarters. But rather, you allow me to have an extemporaneous chat with you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I have 4 students, 4 children who go to NAISD, 2 at Driscoll, 2 at MacArthur. I want to speak about one of them at MacArthur. He's a member of the Technical and Electrical Program. And last year, we raised money for his booster club, and we submitted $3,500. And it was a disappointing amount since we tried to submit $10,000. And it wasn't because of a lack of effort on our part, it was because of a lack of opportunities. And I think you know what I'm going to say now. The opportunity that we would like is the opportunity to sell concessions at the numerous athletic sites and the numerous concession stands. And this is, from what I understand, it's the exclusive use of the Band Parent Association. And we'd like you to consider opening it up beyond that association. I was scrolling through your website today, and I noticed the list of current postings. And I saw 2 current postings were from students from the electrical program. And I would like you to consider allowing them to further fund their endeavors. We just got through a meeting today, and we have a balance of our booster club of $845. And we made a difficult decision of purchasing $1,300 worth of merchandise with the idea that we could use the float to sell what we currently have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
John Weber.
Someone's phone's up here. John Weber, 9614 LaRue. Dr. Gotardi, President Bresnahan, and the board, executive staff, and guests. Tonight, the focus of my talk is on the same thing. I'm glad that we now have 5 minutes because I was at 2 minutes, 50 seconds on my speech.
Got 5.
Tonight, 360-degree student equity and funding. Recently, I was approached, not once but twice, by the MacArthur JROTC drill team to purchase products from them. Both times they said it was to fund their trip for the Nationals in Florida. And they do that all the time. But after the second time I was approached, I felt it was time to review the procedures of Northeast Independent School District on concessions and how to work and obtain the revenue to help pay for this trip. Much to my surprise, I learned that there is a monopoly by the Northeast Band Parents Association on concessions. First, I need to mention that this is in the regulations of the school district in CDGR. And the header of every page in the school district regulations clearly state, organizations shall be consistent and without favoritism shown toward any organization. So it was a shock to me when I read this that on July 21st, 1998, 15 years ago, it says, the concession stands and their management and operation are leased to the Northeast Band Parents Association. This organization is composed of the band parents of the senior high schools. So, July 21st, 1998, we're almost at 15 years. Covers all concessions at Northeast Independent School District. This is absolutely not an equitable situation for the 360-degree students survive in, let alone thrive. All the JROTC, speech and debate, CATE program, AG program, all of the programs that we have here at NEISD should have the same opportunity for that revenue stream. In the Transforming of the Future initiative, there are two goals that are in direct conflict with this monopoly. Goal number 3 of the strategic plan is we will engage in ongoing evaluation of district and campus level policies and abandon those that do not advance our beliefs, our call to action, and learner outcomes. And goal number 8 of the strategic plan states that we will develop a set of standards for resources in addressing inequalities district-wide. With all the new construction of concession stands and the enhancing of existing ones at the high school level, as well as the concessions at all the stadiums, the natatoriums, all of the non-NEISD sporting events, all these things in general, there's plenty of work to go around. Behind you here, he just spoke, are the instructors, parents, students are representing many of the groups I previously mentioned. Most have already worked food service at the AT&C Center, the Dome, all of the different facilities, so they're well prepared to jump in and work for their respective organizations. I spent a large amount of time last week with the San Antonio Metropolitan Health District talking to both Valeries, a Valerie with an E and a Valerie with an A. I thought it was kind of interesting. But both of them have spreadsheets and show that the Northeast Independent School District is paying for the permits, the yearly permits, for those facilities. So if taxpayer money is being spent for those permits, then all of Northeast Independent School District people that have students and all the different organizations should have that same type of opportunity for that concession revenue stream. I also went and asked them, I said, do you need to have a food server permit anymore? You guys remember I used to have one. Because of the changes recently, if it's a permanent facility or even if it's a one-day use permit, there does not need to be a food server permit person there. So that's gone. So that whole argument is gone now. Anybody that's there now, hopefully we don't have any bad hot dogs, but that is gone. So that's no longer a need for that. So I'm requesting a moratorium on Regulation CDGR issued in 1998. So you have a chance to review this and consider rewriting this regulation and open the door for other school groups to share in the revenue generation opportunities derived from concession sales as outlined in the goals for Transforming the Future and the 360-degree student initiatives. That's it. I thank you. I also want to say I think that y'all did a killer job on the MacArthur stuff. That really worked out well, saved some trees. It's doing great. And I can't wait to see you guys when the JROTC facilities open up so we can do that.
Thank you, Mr.
Have a
Weber.
good evening.
Right on time.
Margaret Elizondo.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Gotardi, executive staff, and guests. My name is Margaret Elizondo, and I'm the Executive Vice President of the Northeast AFT. My address is 6800 Park 10 Boulevard. I would like to start out by saying thank you for approving the pay raise for the teachers and support staff. We really appreciate that. I would also like to address an issue that continues to be a concern for our members, student discipline. In order for teachers to effectively deliver instruction, student behavior must be under control. It is our concern that in the past several years, in places where student behavior issues have increased, Northeast ISD's test scores have decreased. AFT would like to work in a partnership with Northeast ISD to help rectify this correlated trend. We ask that you require principals to hold students accountable for upholding the Student Code of Conduct. We ask that principals will be able to discipline students without fear that they will receive negative evaluations for having high discipline numbers. We ask that the Northeast foster an environment where teachers and administrators work collaboratively to help students develop and to be productive members of society. We understand that our students come from so many different backgrounds, and some have home lives that we cannot fathom. These students need to be taught appropriate coping skills and behavior. But as teachers, we also have to take the educational needs of the other students in our class into consideration. Considering this, it's imperative that teachers and administrators be able to work together in a collaborative partnership for the success of all of our students. For our part, AFT would like to offer professional development classes on classroom management and student behavior. The American Federation of Teachers trains and certifies staff to present research-based methods to help ensure teacher and student success. While we can offer these classes at the AFT office, it is our belief that teacher attendance would be greatest if we were able to offer these on campuses throughout the district. Teachers are so very busy. We want to accommodate their schedules. AFT believes that with a powerful partnership between teachers, administrators, this coming school year can be a great one for teachers, administrators, and for our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all for matters from the floor.
Thank you, Mrs. Huey. Next item.
13, board member requests for items to be placed on next month's agenda, and I have a request.
Okay, does any board member have an item they wish to be placed on next month's agenda?
Yes,
Mrs.
ma'am.
Huey?
Dr. Gotardi, could we get a report on the concession stand issue?
You can. I don't know if we'll be ready by the time the next board meeting, which is August.
Right.
But I absolutely will begin working on a report to the board on many things. Why this particular board policy was put in place back in the 90s, pros and cons about using one particular activity, Booster Club, absolutely. Staff will begin working on a report to the board on everything that's important toward this particular issue, because it's not a, as I look back on my 15 years here, this has come up before, but I don't really remember the specifics behind everything. So we're going to need to do some research and some homework, and you bet we'll bring you a report.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, I believe we've addressed the next item, which is discussion and possible action regarding board member requests for reports.
So we need a motion.
So do I have a motion to approve the request for reports from the administration?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Wheat. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Mrs. Huey, last
Your
item?
favorite item, 15, adjournment.
Thank you very much. The time is 8:37, and we are adjourned.